Good evening, everyone. We'll do our rising report. I'll now look to the Deputy Clerk to provide the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For you, Council met in open session at 6 o'clock and passed a motion to go into closed session. In closed session, Council received legal advice, and there was extensive discussion respecting the short-term rental licensing bylaw. Direction was provided to staff and the Township Solicitor to make amendments to the bylaw to reflect comments received by members of Council. Further, a procedural vote was taken to adopt previous closed meeting minutes.
All right, please stand for the national anthem. Okay, we would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples, acknowledging the One Bowl and Spoon Treaty. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, please note that these meetings proceedings are being broadcast live, recorded and made available through the Township website and youtube.com. Flag on Monday, May 29th in support of Pride Niagara and International Pride Month. We also raised the age-friendly flag on Thursday, June 1st in recognition of June being Seniors Month. Regional Council will meet Thursday, June 15th at 6:30 p.m. The next NPCA Full Authority meeting is Friday, June 16th at 9 a.m. The Niagara Transit Commission meets Tuesday, June 20th at 10 a.m. And our next regular meeting of Council will be held June 27th at 7 p.m. Are there any announcements or remarks from members of Council?
Mr. Mayor, just wanted to say that the age-friendly committee had its first meeting May 17th, which was well attended. We only had one person who couldn't show up. The next meeting is June 21st, and at our first meeting we appointed a chair and co-chair of the committee. And I also want to recognize today SD Day and their Heritage Day.
Moving on to the adoption of the previous council minutes, are there any comments, corrections for the draft minutes from the regular meeting of council held May 16th, 2023? Seeing none, I have a motion that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held May 16th, 2023 be adopted as circulated. I have a mover and second. Councilor Plum, Councilor Anderson, any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. Okay, moving on to the public meeting. Included on the agenda this evening, there was a public meeting scheduled to consider an engineer's report pursuant to Section 76 of the Drainage Act regarding the consolidated South Wainfleet drain. An error was identified in the distributed engineer's report, and Section 57 of the Drainage Act authorizes the municipal council to refer such report back to the engineer for reconsideration. That being said, I have a motion that drainage staff report DSR 005-2023 respecting the consolidated South Wainfleet drain engineer's report be received, and that pursuant to Section 57 of the Drainage Act, council refer to the consolidated South Wainfleet drain Section 76 engineer's report back to GM Blue Plan for reconsideration, and that the meeting to consider the updated engineer's report be rescheduled to the regular meeting of council being held June 27, 2023, and that all property owners will be notified of the updated engineer's report and rescheduled meeting. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. All right, we thank anyone who came out tonight for the public meeting and apologize for any inconvenience. There will be an opportunity for the public to speak to the reconsidered report once it becomes available, which we anticipate in a few weeks. So moving on to delegations, we have Ms. Pharma respecting bylaw number 023-2023, the short-term rental licensing bylaw. So we have Ms. Pharma here to make a presentation respecting the short-term rental licensing bylaw listed on tonight's agenda. Ms. Pharma, you have 10 minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you for the opportunity. Hello everyone, this is my first time doing this, so if there are certain protocols I don't follow properly, please understand that it's not in disrespect, it's like the experience. I really felt strongly about coming here and speaking today, and by the way, I don't have any presentations, and if anything, I just wanted to come in here and speak from the heart. I didn't want to come in with something overly prepared. Just to kind of share my experience with this community and with Wainfleet and kind of share my story if you'll indulge. As part of my journey of being introduced to Wainfleet, which was about 2 years ago, a question that frankly you should be asking yourselves, and I'll tell you that I asked myself coming from Toronto is, what's a South Asian woman and a single mom doing out here buying a log cabin? Because frankly, when I bought one on Lakeshore, and my property is currently managed by the lovely Terry from Marie Niagara, or Perfect Stays Niagara, I have to tell you, I didn't know a lot about Wainfleet. I didn't know a lot about, well, definitely didn't know a lot about log cabins. In fact, I think I actually said to Tom Wynn, who's my plumber, that I thought a cistern was something that was decorative that you put on a shelf. I think it was a little bit later that I found out what a cistern actually was. My story really, and the purpose in sharing it, is to say that part of what excites me about being part of this community so far is just the warm welcome I've received from the community. And, for a city girl kind of coming into a place that I wasn't familiar with, and the people I've worked with, it's been nothing but joyful. And I kind of joke about this with my friends that on any given day I'm talking to, Tom the plumber, Terry my property manager, Paul the water truck guy, and the list goes on and on and on. I say this to say that the warm welcome to me is part of what has me so connected to this community. The purpose of me buying a property and wanting to actually, use it for myself, use it as a seasonal residence for myself and my son, and also eventually build a nest egg through short-term rental income is to be able to come and spend more time there as the years go on for my son and I to build some memories. I say this and I share this story not to say that bylaws are decided on one person. We know that that's not true. And in fact, bylaws or laws are oftentimes set up to not just, talk about the community at large, but to perhaps deter some action and deter future preventable action by creating these bylaws. So I get that. So, my story isn't by any means the story around, hey, I've had a lovely experience here, so therefore, please reconsider. The point in me sharing this is to say that there are lots of people in this community and people I've personally met that have really been excited about whether it's the diversity that me and a lot of my guests who come through who have heard and not even known about Wainfleet that have come through here, that have really, really been introduced to a community that they want to also be a part of. And I think that should stand for something and say something. And when I think of the kinds of guests that have stayed at my property, people who have, I can think of a family that really sticks out for me personally, which is a family that had just suffered major loss, and this was their first trip together to celebrate the life of the person they lost. And there's lots of beautiful stories that I think I'm really proud of as part of being a short-term rental owner, and to be able to do that while creating a nest egg for myself. Having said all that, if you don't mind, in the few minutes I have left, if you don't mind, I just want to engage in just a story that I feel has has come up a lot, unfortunately, in my life, and it feels somewhat relatable here, so just indulge me with this. I unfortunately have had friends who've suffered, women under 30, who've suffered from cancer. And I have a lot of oncologist friends who treat cancer. And a lot of times the decision that they talk about is when there's something that's not going well in your body, and there's a part of it that's not going well. The decision always is, do you just treat the bad part, and you just try and keep it local and treat what's not bad and remove it and eradicate it? Or do you do something like chemo that destroys everything that's also good along with it? And it's a tough decision to make. And sometimes the easier thing to do and the better choice, and this is my friends who have gone through this, and some who had the good fortune of having only radiation happen, and some who had the not so great fortune of the long-term effects of chemo, they talk about that difference between trying to create a stringent protocol to really address the problem and the, let's call it bad behavior, whether it's in your body or whether it's in town, or whether it's short-term renters. And the difference between that and allowing a really great community to thrive. I personally think that as a short-term renter or owner who's trying to build a nest egg so that I can come spend more time here with my son in my later years, and hopefully my son comes spend some time out with his friends. And that's the vision I've built. I think there's a thriving opportunity, an opportunity for diversity, an opportunity for a vibrant community that short-term renters bring, and that's the vision that I bought with. And it wasn't a by-accident choice, it wasn't a by-mistake choice. I very intentionally wanted to choose a community to build a memory with that I felt welcome in, and that I felt I was adding some value to. I ask of you if you could please reconsider, and the principal or seasonal residents for multiple years, I'm not here to say take everything out that you put into the bylaw, because that's not fair. There's reasons behind what you're doing, and I have to say, as the doctors, the architects of this town, and building a community, that is important that you have to make these decisions, and they're difficult. My ask of you is to reconsider, please, the principal seasonal residents at being at 1 to 2 years versus I think it's 4 that you're currently considering. And my ask of you just from a possibility of the different kinds of people that can come through this town and experience the speeches, experience the joy that I've experienced. By the way, I always tell anybody coming into Wainfleet to first and foremost, before you do anything, stop at Marshall chocolates. I think I've gained a good 15 pounds just on Marshall chocolates alone, but that's a separate thing. I just ask you to please also reconsider the 7 nights to maybe bringing it down to 3 nights. I think these are 2 things that would make a very big difference in allowing this community to thrive. And again, with a lot of respect for a difficult decision that the team and the community has to make. That's it, and that's all. And thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Farmer. Thank you for your presentation. Are there any comments or questions for our candidates from members of council? Councilor Plum?
Ms. Parlow, you still there?
Ms. Farmer, yes, can I speak? I'm here.
Okay.
I'm not sure I can see who's speaking, I'm sorry. Is it on the...
It's the big, tall, ugly guy in the far corner.
Yeah, I think I see you.
Question to you. If we went from 7 days to, I don't know, to 3 or 4 days, but no rentals outside and inside of that 7-day period. So my neighbors, or your neighbors, only see somebody coming in once a week. Is that something that works? So you have a 4-day rental, and then you'll have 3 days of an empty house.
7 nights or nothing, and my suggestion was 3 nights is a commitment when I think of families and friends that have rented my cabin. So 3 nights, nothing under 3 nights. Are we saying the same
No,
thing?
I don't think you're listening. So
Okay.
in 7 days, we have nothing under 3 nights or 4 nights.
Right.
But then your house sits empty for the remaining 3 or 4 days. So once a week, somebody will be able to rent your place.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean...
I'm just asking, you're asking us to change,
Yeah.
to do things.
Yeah,
So
that's interesting, and maybe that could work.
Right, so the neighbors that are there will get somebody to come in, 3 nights, 4 nights, whatever it is, and if it's 3 nights, 4 nights, they know there's nobody in the house bothering them. And then you can rent it out the next time for 4 nights, or 5 nights, or 7 nights. There's only one family going in once a week.
Well, I definitely think that's a very good compromise to come to. I think it's a really great alternative. I think that's a great alternative. And frankly, I didn't think of that alternative.
Well, we're just trying to keep our long-term residents with some
I mean,
peace.
my cabin is close on either side of the neighbors, so it's something that I'm very conscious of. So I appreciate that. And yeah, I could see that as a potential workable solution.
Okay, that's something we'll look at. Not guaranteeing anything, but it's something we'll look at.
And the guarantees is what my dad keeps reminding me, even though I'm in my 40s.
There are none. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you, Ms. Farmer. Can I have a mover and a seconder? All right. And then I'll put a motion forward just to receive the presentation as information and mover and seconder. Councilor Wainfleet, Councilor McCollum, any other further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Moving on to Sherry Torkos. We have Ms. Torkos here to make a presentation respecting the short-term rental licensing bylaw listed on tonight's agenda. Ms. Torkos, you have 10 minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you very much. Your worship, my councilors and staff members. There we go. Thank you very much. Your worship, town councilors and staff members and members of the public who are here today. I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this evening regarding the draft short-term rental bylaw. As a matter of background, I grew up here in Wainfleet. I grew up on Harborview Road. I went to school at William E. Brown. I did figure skating here in Wainfleet. This town is very near and dear to my heart. This is home for me. After I went away to pharmacy school and came back, I settled in Fort Erie where I ended up practicing. But as soon as I was able to purchase a property, I came to Wainfleet and I purchased a cottage by the conservation park. And we had that cottage many years in our family. And when an opportunity came up to buy the next door neighbor's cottage, he was an American that was no longer able to come over during the pandemic. Frustrated with that, amongst other things, and the shoreline issues, his cottage came available, and myself and my husband decided to purchase it so that we could also operate a short-term rental and share what we love about this area with other people. I wanted to speak tonight because I have some strong concerns about some of the elements in the draft bylaw. And I've had the opportunity to speak with other responsible owners of short-term rentals, responsible owners, who share my concerns and ask me to speak on their behalf. We feel that this bylaw is really punishing everyone who operates a short-term rental rather than focusing on the issues that have been created by those who are neglectful and absent owners. The proposed bylaw also seems much more onerous than those implemented in other nearby cities, such as Fort Erie. It appears that owners of short-term rentals are being held to a higher standard than owners who don't rent out. For example, many people who own cottages in Wainfleet and don't rent out, they have parties, they do fireworks, they pitch tents, they park trailers on their properties, they park wherever they want, and yet the people that own short-term rentals and operate short-term rentals were being held to a higher standard and having imposed these strict occupancy laws, day guests, limits. It just seems unfair. When we opened our short-term rental cottage in 2021, which again is located right next to our family cottage, we wanted to make sure that our rental cottage didn't have any negative impact on our neighbors. So we actually talked to our neighbors before we even decided to do this, to get their consent, to ask them questions about, to get their input and get their feedback on any concerns that they had. We strictly vet our renters. We have turned down, in fact, many people who have wanted to have bachelor parties or bachelorette parties, or a group of 20-year-old boys, no disrespect, but those are boys that are gonna wanna drink and party and cause noise and disturbances. So we rent strictly to families. We have a maximum occupancy of 8, and we have a guest book that outlines our rules. And we require that everyone who rents sign a contract. And we've declined, again, many prospective renters who do not meet our requirements out of respect for the town, for our neighbors, because we don't want to cause an upset. We want to have a positive impact on our community. And when we purchased our cottage, we invested heavily in upgrades, water filtration system, installing expensive shoreline protection, and purchasing many things to enhance the amenities that we could offer to people that were coming to visit and stay with us as guests. If this bylaw goes through, we would be prohibited from getting a license because we've only owned the property for 2.5 years. Yet we haven't had one single complaint from any of our neighbors. There have been no bylaw officers called to our property. We follow the rules. We go above and beyond to make sure that we're being respectful and doing it the right way. And again, when you look at some of the elements in this bylaw, it seems very unfair. In fact, I talked to them about the proposed bylaw and what was happening. A lot of them were surprised, but they understand because they've heard from others in the community of what's going on. Our neighbors, though, they say they actually enjoy meeting and interacting with the families that we host. As the previous speaker mentioned, we have diverse guests that have come to the community that play with and interact with our children, that interact with our neighbors, that help out our neighbors. We have a lot of elderly neighbors in our area. I've had some of my renters actually lend a helping hand, moving things and assisting where they can. And I think it's actually very unfair and unreasonable to have a stipulation in the bylaw that would preclude people like myself from renting just because we haven't been doing it, we haven't owned the property for 4 years. I do understand where it's coming from, and in talking to a lot of people, they say they're trying to deter out-of-town people from coming in, buying up properties, being absentee, absentee landlords, so to speak, of the short-term rentals. And I get that. But my situation and some other people that run short-term rentals is very different. We live here in Niagara. I spend my summers in Wainfleet, right next to the cottage that we rent out. So again, if this aspect of the bylaw remains, I wouldn't be able to continue to rent my cottage to the families that have come here for the last 3 years that love it. In fact, people that came last year, they already booked for this summer. They want to book for the next summer. They love coming here. They love, going to Marshville. They love, going to our beaches and enjoying so many aspects that we also love. So I'd ask council to please consider removing this stipulation or changing it to be specific maybe to people that are outside the Niagara region. Although, in saying that, in listening to the previous speaker, I realized that that would preclude her from being able to. And I see she's passionate and she loves Wainfleet, and if she's operating a short-term rental responsibly, then why shouldn't people who have owned for less than 4 years be able to continue on as long as they're doing it responsibly? I'd also like to express concerns regarding the occupancy limits. Our rental cottage can safely and comfortably accommodate 8 people. We have a 3-bedroom cottage, 2 bedrooms on the lower, and then a big loft upstairs which has 4 beds. And we've had some groups, small groups, again, 8 people is our cap, which represent 2 families. So you have 4 adults, 4 kids. So if this bylaw goes through, we wouldn't be able to have those families return to stay with us because it would put us beyond 6 people. And I know there are other owners that I've spoken to prior to this meeting that are in similar situations. For example, a person renting out a spacious 1-bedroom cottage with a pull-out sofa should be able to accommodate 4 people, 2 people in a bed, 2 kids on the pull-out sofa or on air mattresses, as long as there's not overcrowding and the septic system and the water system can accommodate it. So I respectfully ask council to reconsider the occupancy limits, consider what you had in the previous draft bylaw, which was 8 people for a 3-bedroom unit, 6 people for a 2-bedroom, and 4 people for a 1-bedroom unit, which again was in the previous draft, and I thought that was more reasonable. I heard from those that expressed concerns in the previous meeting, that there are some people that operate short-term rentals that have like 12, 14, 15 guests. I get it, that's not desirable. I wouldn't want that next to me either. And I've heard about the complaints. Growing up on Harborview Road, I was really distressed when I heard of some of the antics that were going on in that street where there was a large short-term rental that was being operated, turnstile, people coming in and out, people urinating, fireworks, this, that, and the other. I wouldn't want that next to me, and so while I don't love this bylaw, I understand that bylaws are necessary and that maybe something has to be done to curtail some of the bad behavior. But the problem is, really we need to, I think, look at those that are not vetting their guests, those that are not following the rules, rather than punishing all of us and those that are following the rules and having a positive impact on the community. Short-term rentals, I feel that when they're done responsibly, they do add value to our town. They help to support the economy of Wainfleet in several ways. They bring revenue to local businesses such as the restaurants, stores, golf courses, farmers markets, and more. We provide a directory in our cottage, and that lists all the local businesses, and we see them actually going to the market and purchasing things. We see them at DJ's. They go to Marshville. So they do contribute and spend money while they're in this town. So I think if this bylaw is passed and some responsible owners like myself are forced to shut down, this will have a negative impact on the economy here. So the other last point that I'd like to make before my time runs up is that I think that the town, that the residents have expressed a need for more staffing and enforcement of existing bylaws. In my understanding, there aren't any bylaw officers working evenings or weekends, and I suspect this is when many of the complaints and infractions are occurring. So if there was another bylaw officer perhaps available to crack down on, again, people that are breaking the rules and breaking the laws. So thank you for your time, and I hope you will take into consideration the issues that I've raised tonight.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any comments, discussion from council? Councilor Bailey, go ahead.
Sherry, I can vouch that you're responsible and a lifelong Wainfleet resident. I just want to say, you do have bylaw that works off hours.
Oh, I didn't know that, because I've heard people say that there's no bylaw officers in nights and weekends, but I didn't know that
I
personally.
don't know their exact hours, but we do.
Yeah, okay.
It fluctuates. And some of the points that you made are very valid, and we are tweaking it, we're working on it, and it's going to come back to us, agenda, and different
Thank you.
version. So, like Councilor McCullen said, we're working on it.
It's a work in progress. And I know it's very time consuming. I'm sure you've had lots of input from both sides of the spectrum. Us who are operating short-term rentals don't like bylaws, but I understand the necessity of them. I've heard a lot of people complain about the amount of the fines in the thousands of dollars. Not an issue for me because I don't, we haven't had any issues where rules have been broken. But it's a lot of work. Like I will say, to run my short-term rental, I'm back and forth with people all the time and making sure we're right next door. So we really try hard.
And we thank you for being responsible.
That's really what we be.
We can send people to you for a class. Thanks, Sherry.
Councilor McCullen, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Sherry, you made a nice presentation. I understand you are a good operator, it makes sense. But what you talk about people in their own private homes, they can have a party of 50 people. There's nothing we can do about it.
I
It's
know.
their private home.
And just a point of
Wait,
making.
I know, but you're running a business.
Mm-hmm.
There's rules and regulations for businesses. I can't say, you mentioned, anybody from Toronto or north of the Niagara Peninsula. We can't do that. That's discrimination, right? There's a whole set of rules that as a town we have to follow that may or may not make sense to you. But
Yeah,
we can't be discriminatory,
I
right?
guess what I was saying, implying more, is that having somebody local, because I saw something in the bylaw that something had to be within 30 minutes, but I guess that's to respond to complaints,
So that's
not to own
responding
it.
to not,
Yeah.
that's, you need an agent.
I have ideas, maybe there's some of them don't work.
So there's that. There's the, let's say the house next door to you rules for sale. If you don't have the wherewithal to purchase that, and somebody comes in that's a bad operator,
I would be happy.
No, you wouldn't be.
No,
right?
and I get, I
And,
hear.
you know,
Yeah.
our thing is, the way I look at it, all the people that have worked hard their whole life to come up and buy this, right? And they're my age or 50-something, and they finally bought their dream house, and this is where they're going to retire. They shouldn't have their livelihood blown up or their peace and quiet blown up because a bad operator or a good operator wants to make a profit.
Well,
You see what I'm saying?
I do.
Your mom and dad living next door. And they worked
Absolutely.
their whole life to do this, and they paid for their kids to go to school, and they finally got some money and they can go here.
And I've
And
heard
then
some
this
stories
happens.
from residents like that. Again, I bring up the people in Harborview Road, which is where I grew up.
Yeah.
And I know there's a woman there, and I've heard her stories. She's obviously against short-term rentals because what happened next door to her. So I do
But she's
get
not
that.
wrong.
But my goal was, yes, obviously, this cottage became available, I thought, great, I can operate a short-term rental, share what I love with others. It's not just about money, though. Like, I have turned down a number of renters, people offering me lots of money. But
You're
I'm
one
just,
of the good ones.
Well,
What Sherry said that.
but you have to have morals, and you have to have ethics and values, and the bottom line, I would rather, and I told our neighbors this, I would rather turn renters down and lose money than make enemies in the neighborhood. So that's how I try to be. But no, I understand your perspective. I bought my short-term rental when I was 52, and this was part of my semi-retirement project. So this is why I wanted to, slow down work in the pharmacy and practicing and operate a short-term rental, because I love hosting and welcoming people into our community and showing them around and watching their kids play on the beach and have fun.
Like I said, you're one of the good ones. And unfortunately, we can't write bylaws just for bad people. We have to write them all the way across, right? So it's,
But maybe if there's elements that could be directed more at penalizing the offenders.
so that's the idea of the penalties that you
Yeah.
said they're high.
Yeah.
You will probably never get a penalty. The way you explain you run the place, you will never have a problem with it. Nobody will call on you, you'll never see any of us. And again, you'll pay your license fee every year and that'll be the end of it.
Well, let's hope if I'll be able to, because I've only owned it for 2.5 years, so hopefully there'll be a little tweak in that part.
There are some tweaks coming, so
Okay, good.
I won't promise
Thank
you
you.
anything, but
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Hi Sherry,
Hi,
welcome to Wainfleet.
thank you.
I live on Lake Shore, so I know it's wonderful. Just for my own self, could you tell me the date that you purchased the property that you'd like to rent?
So I purchased it in February 2021, and we did renovations. We started renting it out in 2021, not the full summer. And then last summer we rented it the full summer. We rented a bit in May, a little bit in June, July, August was fully booked, and we had some scattered rentals in September, October. So this is going into our third season renting. So again, I'm concerned because if this happens the way it is and then I can't rent next year, then I would have to sell. Because as it is, because it's a seasonal rental, it's not like this is a cash cow for me. It doesn't break even yet. The plan was 5 years, then maybe we'll break even, because ours isn't, it's a seasonal cottage, it's not winterized. So we can only rent it really May to September, October.
Thank you, Sherry. Your points are under consideration.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Councilman Bo, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, and this is not directed to you, but it's a comment I'm going to make. We have a housing shortage in all of Ontario. How many bed and Airbnbs are in Ontario that somebody could be living in? And we're going to cut down green belts, forests, high-density living, so that, and this is not you, but I'm just saying in general, across the province. Everybody's screaming because but there's how many people own the places that only rent them out for 3 months, the rest of the year they sit there vacant. And we got people that can't afford housing. That's not right either.
No, it's not.
Right? So,
No.
maybe you should be, yours is a winterized.
Well, ours would be,
Once
I actually looked into winterizing it, but it's like 100 and some odd thousand because it would have walls down, proper insulation, all of that,
To me, then,
yeah.
a lot of them should be rented for 7 months or 9 months, and there's professors, you're an educated woman, there's professors at Brock and Agri College, and businessmen that get shipped into town, or somebody's building a house and they can live in a place for 9 months, that's great. So, there's a lot of alternatives to this, but I just see
No, I
that,
agree with you. There is definitely a housing shortage. In fact, my brother, who also operates a short-term rental on Churchill, he's actually considering changing. His is winterized and making it a year-round rental. We do also rent out our place. We've had a few companies that have come to this area doing work on these cell towers, and those are the kind of requests I get, where it's like 4 guys, and then we literally go back and forth 8 times. No parties, no smoking, no this, no that, and they tell me then why they're coming into town, that they're here to work, and then I still lay down the law again, and then I let them know I'm next door, and I let them know my husband's a firefighter, and it goes on and on. So yeah, I can only do my best, but I agree with you, it's a point well taken that we do need more housing. And we're probably saturated with short-term rentals right now.
okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. I would just like to add that I actually agree with all your points. With the current occupancy limits the way they are, a family even of my size, I have 4 children, my wife, we travel with our in-laws, we also would not be able to stay in Wainfleet. So I completely understand your points, and I actually agree with you. So
Thank you, I
just like
appreciate
to
that.
state that. Is there any other further discussion from any councilors? Somebody like to make a motion to receive this as information? Councilman McClellan, moved by, or seconded by Councilor Anderson. Any other further discussion? Okay, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to the community development services. Ms. Earl, would you like to give a brief overview of your report?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This report serves to provide council a revised version of the draft short-term rental STR licensing bylaw and amending administrative monetary penalty system AMPS bylaw to allow for enforcement of the licensing bylaw, as well as staff's request for council's direction on how to proceed with the existing STR interim control bylaw, which is set to lapse on June 21st, 2023. At the regular meeting of council on April 4th, council reviewed a revised draft short-term rental licensing bylaw, and after much deliberation, passed several motions which amended the following: a minimum 7-day rental, prohibition on non-renting guests, maximum 3-bedroom rentals with a 6-person occupancy limit, a prerequisite that the residence be owned for a minimum of 4 years prior to rental use, and increased penalty fine amounts. Staff also initiated other revisions to the bylaw, which include licensing of bed and breakfasts. So to address this, we've added new definitions, prohibitions, and additions to the license application submission, as well as corresponding penalties, which have been included. Should council wish to adopt the licensing bylaw, staff would be in a position to post and hire a successful candidate for the administration of the licensing program, likely to begin in the fall of this year. As such, for the remainder of the summer months, the behaviors on the properties would continue to be regulated through the existing bylaws, such as noise, nuisance, fireworks, open air burning, and parking. Staff are committed to providing public notice, offering plenty of time to get license applications in for review well in advance of the 2024 rental season. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions council may have at this time.
Councilors, any questions?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Again, the subject matter, the short-term rental bylaw, was the subject of a closed session meeting at the start of this evening's council meeting, where council discussed various issues with staff and the township solicitor, and received some legal advice from the township solicitor, particularly in response to a number of the concerns that have come in since the release of the most recent draft. As a result, in closed session, as was mentioned by the deputy clerk earlier in the meeting in the rise and report section of the agenda, council did provide direction to staff and the township solicitor to investigate and consider making some amendments to the draft bylaw as contained in the staff report, as contained in this evening's agenda, substantially in accordance with a lot of the points that have been raised by delegations this evening. So at this stage, there is direction to staff and the township solicitor to return the bylaw, do some investigations, and return a new draft to the next available meeting of council. So at this stage, there is, based on the closed session direction, not going to be a bylaw passed this evening to regulate short-term rentals. Instead, at this stage, what council needs to do is receive the report as information and acknowledge that there will be a new draft bylaw returning potentially at the next meeting if we can get all that investigation and amendments done. If not, it will be the next available meeting of council. So hopefully that helps clarify next steps with respect to the short-term rental bylaw.
Thank you. Can I have a mover and a second on that? Councilman Cohen, Councilman Wainfleet. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And guys, we're going to get back into it. We're moving on to the municipal banner program. Mr. Earl, would you like to give us a brief overview of your report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to members of council. In 2022, council approved 16 dual-sided banners with mounting hardware. The winter-themed banners were erected in the Wainfleet Village along Highway 3 from Bell Road through the downtown core east past the Meridian Credit Union. As the banner designs for the spring-summer have not yet been determined, council at their meeting on April 25th passed a motion to have local Wainfleet residents of all ages submit their digital banner designs for council's consideration. A call for submissions was posted on the township's website and social media outlets. The township received submissions from 2 residents, one of which submitted multiple designs, and the submissions that were received are attached as Appendix A. So with that, I look to council for direction on the selection of the spring-summer banner design. Thank you.
All right, so I have a motion that Community and Development Services Staff Report CDS 004-2023 respecting Municipal Banner Program Spring Summer be received, and that council provides staff direction as to the preferred design option for the Spring Summer theme for the Municipal Banner Program. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan? Councilor Van Fleet, thank you. Is there any discussion? Councilor Van Fleet, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Linz, what if we don't like any of them?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. That's a fair question. And I would look to Council if there was something specific that you had in mind. Some of the options are I can direct for digital review from the company to make something specific for us. For example, if we just wanted vertical Canadian flags or something with more of an agricultural flavor that has maybe a farmer's field with a red tractor, for example. So if there was a direction for something specific, we can have something designed to that effect. Thank you.
I like that our farmers in the back are not sure about the red tractor thing, but we're going with a red tractor. So we didn't have very many submissions from anybody? Because do we have to decide right now, or can it wait before, like, maybe we do it at the fall fair or put it out there? Because I don't like any of these, and I want it to be a red tractor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the color of tractor would be up to your preference, Council, but there is no timing that we're under the gun for. It does take a number of weeks to, one, have digital design completed, and then have the banners printed and shipped here. So if we want something up for the fall specifically, we could use the funding that was allocated for in the budget to go to fall banners prior to us putting the winter theme back up. So we could also do that if that's something council would consider. If you'd like to see, staff could provide examples of fall theme ones as well if that's something that you're interested in.
Anything else, Councilor Lee? No? Okay, Councilor McClellan, go ahead.
You, Mr. Mayor. Lindsay, how many flags are there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there are 16.
16.
Yeah.
So maybe suggest that we put 8 Canadian flags and 8 township flags. So we put every other one. We get something up there and get going. Maybe it'll be more interesting in 2 years, and maybe it'll be a green tractor on a field of ripe wheat, so that we don't offend too many of these guys sitting in the back. But you know, I think we've got the hardware up there. We should be using it for something. So, you know, if we go with the Canadian flag and the township flag, if nothing else, we're promoting our town, right? So, just a thought. Pretty cool.
Any other discussion or comments? I will ask.
Oh.
Councilor Anderson? Councilor McClellan, go ahead.
So can I make that a motion that we go with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Do you have a seconder?
Joan?
Oh. Councilor Anderson? We got it. Okay. Any other further discussion?
No. So it would be half Canadian and half township ones. It would be a total of 16.
All right, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
Go ahead, see if you're all right. You okay with that? Okay.
All right, so moving on to drainage staff reports. DSR 006-2023, respecting the drainage works and rail. Mr. Jameson, would you please give us a brief overview of your report?
Great. Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor, to all of staff. So Drainage Staff Report number 6 is to provide some information on the federally regulated railways and the Drainage Act. So a few years ago, CN Rail stopped paying drainage assessments or allowing municipal drain construction projects on their property. To date, there's been numerous organizations that have come to the table to fight against this decision, including the Roma, AMO, and some other organizations, including the Ministry of Agriculture and some other provincial levels. So locally within the township, we have 13 municipal drains that are impacted by these federally regulated railways and approximately $7,000 in outstanding maintenance fees. Most significantly is that there's 2 major reconstruction projects that are hinging on this communication and lack of progress from the rail. We will need to have the rail company's support and ability to install some improved culverts underneath their property, and it's just been sitting on hold waiting for this decision to come through. So the recommendation of this report is to adopt a resolution supporting the efforts of the involved parties to ensure that all property owners in the province that are assessed to these types of projects are required to participate in and contribute to the projects.
Thank you. So I have a motion that report DSR 006-2023 regarding municipal drainage works and rail be received as information. And whereas the Council of the Township of Wainfleet recognizes that municipal drains are critical elements of rural infrastructure that support agricultural production, enhance food security, and support environmental and economic sustainability in rural Ontario. And whereas an underlying principle of the Drainage Act of Ontario is that all owners of property that are assessed to municipal drain projects are required to participate in and contribute to such projects, including public utilities such as waterworks, gasworks, electric heat, light and power works, telegraph and telephone lines, railways, street railways, and so on. Now, therefore, the Council of the Township of Wainfleet calls on our provincial and federal partners, including the Minister of Transport of Canada, to encourage all railways, however operated, including CNR, to engage with the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Rural Ontario Municipalities Association, the Drainage Superintendents Association of Ontario, local municipalities, farmers, and other stakeholders to uphold the underlying principle of Ontario's Drainage Act that all property owners assessed to municipal drain projects are required to participate in and contribute financially to such drain projects. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan? Councilor Anderson? Any discussion? Councilor McClellan, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if getting a hold of our local federal MP and seeing if he can do anything. I think our provincial, we should be calling every MP in the Niagara region on this. This is a major problem. And Mark, if it wouldn't affect our farmers, I'd tell you to go plug the drain on the other side of their tracks and let them wash out their tracks. And then maybe they smarten up. But unfortunately, the poor farmers here would be the guys paying the price in the meantime, and we can't do that. But I think, we definitely should be sending a letter, not only with all the associations, but straight from us to I said to you, Mark, at the break, they came in on flat land and built dikes. If you ask them, they'll tell you they build everything to last 100 years. Talk to any railroad engineer, that's what we build all our trestles for, everything. And yet here they are blocking this, won't let you maintain them, won't do anything. It's just a new group that's in there that don't want to pay the bill. And I'm sure it's tens of millions of dollars a year. But they're making $1 billion. So who cares? Fix your problem. So we need to, get a letter out to them and get a letter to all of the MPs here from the town saying, that's what our farmers thrive on, is having municipal drains. We spend a ton of money, and to have some bureaucratic bumblers hold it up is wrong.
Well said. I agree, even with the bumbling parts. Any other comments? Councilor Anderson?
It's just sort of a comment about basically the two big rail transport people that we're talking about, CN and CP, I think that anybody that sits in the top 10 fiscal asset margins on the Toronto Stock Exchange could well fix all of the drains in the township, let alone the couple major that we're looking after. So there's enough money there to not even have this discussion. So I think it's a bit deplorable by the corporations to be holding it up. Thank you.
Councilor McCullen, did you want to make a motion to receive that as direction to staff, to send one directly from the township?
Absolutely.
Absolutely?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I get a seconder on that? Councilor Anderson, any discussion to that? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Oh, would you like to say?
So one question. Can we also in that motion get staff to get a hold of our federal MPs, our provincial MPs, everybody from the Niagara region to get on this? I know this is across all of Ontario, but it's the squeaky wheel that gets the grease.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start making a lot of noise and see what we can do for these guys.
Absolutely.
So if you can add that as part of the motion, then we're good.
Okay. Councilor Van Fleet, go ahead.
This is not about drainage, but it's to you, Richard. Could we like maybe piggyback on road maintenance as well?
Through your worship, yes, I know where you're going with that, and I still haven't got a response. So my next my next email is also being sent out to the parliamentarians as well as Transport Canada, due to the fact that they're not even responding.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other further discussion on that? No? Okay, then I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. All right, so moving on to the fire staff reports, FSR 005-2023, respecting the Fire and Emergency Services Dispatch Agreement Renewal. Chief Alcock, would you please give us a brief overview of your report?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The report I have before you this evening is regarding the renewal for fire dispatch services with the City of St. Catharines. We've been using the City of St. Catharines for many, many years. Our contract expired at the end of 2022, during some consolidation planning. St. Catharines has agreed to extend that contract for at least 2023 while we negotiated a new long-term agreement. What you have before you is a 15-year agreement with the option to exit at year 10, provided that we provide 24 months notice. The reason for a long-term agreement is with next generation 911, which is being mandated by the CRTC, be implemented by 2024-2025. Any dispatch center that's operated within Canada has to be next-gen 911 capable, and with that comes some substantial technological upgrades and investments that these dispatch centers have to make. So with St. Catharines having to undergo and take on these investments, they've requested that any users that they will, or any partners that they're going to be dispatching for, that they have long-term agreements, so that way, in 5 years, we don't back out of the agreements and they're left holding the bag for these investments. You may recall in 2021, I had presented a report to council about a consolidation plan. That consolidation plan fell apart, and at that time, St. Catharines was not looking at renewing. When that consolidation plan fell apart, St. Catharines did come back as a potential vendor for dispatch services, and as through the last year and a half of negotiations, we've been able to come to the agreement that you have before you. So, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Perfect. Okay, so I have the motion that the fire staff report FSR 005-2023, respecting fire and emergency services dispatch agreement renewal, be received, and that council authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into an agreement with the corporation of the City of St. Catharines for fire and emergency dispatch services attached as Appendix A for a 15-year period commencing on January 1st, 2023 to continue until December 31st, 2037. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor Anderson, Councilor McClellan, any discussion? Not seeing any. Chief Alcock, I'll just mention, as I asked you today, there was no more room for negotiation, just to let the public know that this was the full negotiated numbers that we got from the city of St. Catharines.
Mr. Mayor, if there was any room for negotiation, I would have already tried it.
Thank you. Just want to let everybody know. Okay. So no other discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Okay, moving on to the Public Works staff reports. PWSR 013-2023, respecting the septic system repair update. Mr. Nan, would you please give us a brief overview of your report?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to members of council. Yes, the report, Public Works Staff Report 013-2023, respecting the septic system repair update. As council is aware, staff found an issue with the septic tank at the arena facility during the yearly inspection program. An additional tank was located. Significant groundwater was also found to be infiltrating that was discovered in this buried tank. According to the MOECP, they advised the township we would have to amend our current environmental compliance certificate, and R.J. Burnside was engaged to perform the necessary requirements to update our certificate. Another thorough inspection of our tanks was performed, and the arena and library tanks require replacement at this time, as they have deteriorated significantly since the 2017 investigation. A new septic bed, at the time when we did the investigation, and the new septic bed was installed. The new proposed design would require the removal of all 3 tanks at the library and installation of a new 4,500-liter tank with 2 grinder pumps to disperse the contents to the pump chamber located behind the arena. Additionally, the 4 tanks behind the arena would be removed, and a new single 50,000-liter tank with a gravity outfall to the existing pump chamber, also combined or connected to the same pump chamber at the rear of the arena. R.J. Burnside completed the required works, and if the approvals, which are in the process right now with the MOCP, they project the cost of the repairs for the replacement at $150,000. If approved by council, staff will be preparing a tender for the work to be completed, and final costs will be presented to council in a follow-up report to be awarded for the project.
Thank you. So I have a motion that the Public Works Staff Report PWSR 013-2023 respecting the septic system repair update be received, and that council direct the manager of operations to proceed with preparing a tender for the replacement of the septic tanks at the library and arena facilities, and that staff be allowed to draw from reserves to make the required repairs. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan, Councilor Anderson, any discussion? Councilor McClellan, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Richard, $150,000 sounds like an awful lot of money for the little bit we're getting out of this. This is money we don't have. This is money that wasn't budgeted for. Get it closer to 100. I don't care who you got to squeeze or where you got to go. This is money we don't have. We don't want to be raising taxes, and to come up with this is, it's not right, so.
Through your worship to Councilor McClellan, these are very, very conservative estimates. I anticipate the cost being much less when it actually goes to tender.
Yeah, well, when you throw the number out in public, it doesn't get any cheaper.
Councilor Van Fleet?
I'm done.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, is there any of this work we can do in-house, like removing the old septic tanks?
Through your worship, the issue is licensing for contractors capable of performing the work.
Is there any other further discussion? Seeing none? Oh. Oh. Okay, then I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Okay, moving on to the review of correspondence. Hold on here. Okay.
Councilor McClellan, can you speak to the correspondence regarding the Niagara Central Dorothy Running Airport Commission?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the airport is on a regional road. The region has fixed Effingham Road. They've fixed part of River Road up to and including the west side of O'Reilly's Bridge. From O'Reilly's Bridge to the end of the regional road where it turns into a Town of Pelham Road, I think the last 3, if not more times they've repaired the road, they've stopped and not done anything there. The 4 municipalities own the airport. So all 4 municipalities are going to put a request in to the region to fix that on their next hot mix program. So we're asking every council to endorse this request. So that's what it's all about. Hopefully you're sitting on the Public Works Committee, you can push somebody to help us get this done. So that's where we're going with it. That's the reason for this request. It's a mess.
So we just need a motion for
So
support?
that would be the
So
motion
it'd be your
to
motion?
support this to get it
Okay.
repaved.
So I just need a seconder. Councilor Anderson, is there any discussion? Seeing none? Oh, Councilor Van Fleet, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if, when we're talking about this road, if we could maybe put 45 on the list too? Mr. Mayor? That's okay.
I apologize. Can you repeat that? Our clerk was discussing something.
We're going to do this road. Can we get Regional Road 45 on the list as well to more attention? Because there's no bridge there. Okay.
Councilor McClellan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at Mr. Nan, and he may know something that the rest of us don't before we include this in, so.
Mr. Nan, you have the floor.
Through your worship, to all councilors. Yeah, again, we've reached out. We've pretty much got the same response that they're working on it, and it didn't meet this year's budget. So unless the Public Works Committee frees up some more money or finds some more savings, it's not scheduled just yet.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilor McClellan.
So if I can, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that we leave the first motion. I'll make a second motion, that is this council. We want to know the status on Regional Road 45. I can tell you there's never been a road closed in North Niagara for this long without attention. So it's time that we start complaining about it on a regular basis.
All right. So we'll just do it as 2 separate motions?
Yes.
So there being no further discussion on the first motion, I'll call the question of all in favor. Opposed? That's carried. Now moving on to the second motion. Do I need a seconder? Yeah, okay. So I just need a seconder. Councilor Anderson, any other further discussion? Seeing none?
No.
Oh.
So,
Go ahead.
so I think we have, in the wording, we have to put in there that because it's South Niagara and because they don't think the traffic flow is great enough, is not a reason not to fix it. We give the region $6 million a year. We don't get a whole lot out of it. Fix our road. The detour is probably 15 kilometers around there for the fire chief and everybody else. So the letter has to explain all that, or the motion has to explain all that and get it read in regional council. You okay with that, Meredith? We got enough?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, staff will craft an appropriately worded letter that attempts to emphasize those issues and the desire of council for the region to expedite its attention to Road 45.
Go ahead, Councilor McClellan.
So when you're crafting that letter, I'm not really all that politically correct, so you can't say, because we're in South Niagara, we're not second-class citizens, okay? And I don't mind signing that. Thank you.
Understood. Okay, Councilor Anderson, go ahead.
Just through you, Mayor, I thought that, and maybe since you're on Public Works, I thought that the 45 Bridge and Road were on regional budget this year. So could we see whether that was on budget and then pulled off a budget and rationale for the following? I'm just wondering. I thought I saw it on regional budgeting.
Yeah, we can absolutely get that pulled. Okay, is there any other discussion on it? Nope. Okay, then I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, we're gonna move on to bylaws. I'm gonna pass it over to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to all of council. There are 4 bylaws listed on the agenda this evening for ratification. So numbers 22 through 25. 23 and 24 will not be considered this evening. They deal directly with the short-term rental licensing bylaw, which was deferred to the next available meeting for the amendments to be made to that bylaw, provided the direction that was given to staff. Bylaw number 25 will also not be considered this evening because the bylaw deals directly with the consolidated South Wainfleet drain. And that engineer's report was referred back to the engineer for reconsideration of that report, also coming back to the next available meeting for the meeting to consider. So the only bylaw being considered tonight is bylaw 22, and that motion would be that bylaw number 22, 2023, being a bylaw to repeal and replace bylaw number 58, 2019, being a bylaw to govern the proceedings of the Township of Wainfleet Council, the conduct of its members and the calling of meetings be read and passed the 6th day of June 2023.
So can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councilor McClellan, Councilor Wainfleet. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, then I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Okay, moving on to notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion from members of council? Oh, seeing none. Okay, then we're going to move to the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council. So I have a motion that bylaw number 23, 2023, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the actions of the council at its meeting held on the 6th day of June 2023, be read and passed this 6th day of June 2023. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor McClellan, Councilor Anderson. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. There being no further business, the meeting is now adjourned.